I don't think there's a single woman in Sri Lanka who doesn't have a story of sexual harassment or some sort of harassment on the street to share. And this is an unfortunate truth about our country, that our girls and our women have to go through these experiences, so much so that it has almost become normal. We have this mentality in our heads that boys will be boys and that is the way. And then what we do as a society is we teach the girls to be afraid, and we make it the girls' fault that these things happen by saying things like, because you went out alone at night, or you were in the company that you shouldn't have been with, or why are you walking on the streets. And so much of victimization that happens by us as a society, whereas what we should be doing is completely the opposite. We should not be making this an excuse and saying boys will be boys and allowing it to continue. We should certainly be taking more sort of stronger measures to hold the men and the boys accountable when they do commit acts of harassment on the street. As a society, I mean, how many times have you seen it happening, or you heard it happening but never spoken up? Because either you think that you don't have a right to speak up about it, or you think it's not your problem and therefore you look away. And this creates this culture of fear, this culture of stigma around the subject, which I think is not the way to go. If we want change in our country, and if we want our girls to be safer and happier and equal citizens, we need to start speaking up. If you're in a bus and you see some sort of harassment going on, you should be supporting the person who is subjected to that harassment. If you're on the streets and if you hear wolf whistles or anangi or all sorts of things, they do that business and all that, you should have the guts to turn around, look them in the eye, and ask them why they're saying those things, and what is the purpose, what are they hoping to get out of it. And sometimes you'd be amazed at how many men just don't have the answers and they're absolutely scared. This is all about power. This is all about men enjoying impunity when it comes to street harassment. And the more that women feel supported by society around them to be intolerant of it, the stronger the women themselves will become to speak up for it. Don't ever hold your girls accountable for things that they have to undergo on the street. And that is my message about how we as a society can change the way we behave. Gender-based violence is a very tricky, very complicated subject, and it is very important for us to remember that gender-based violence doesn't necessarily mean a man violating a woman, because gender-based violence does happen the other way around as well. You do get men who are victims of violence. You get homosexual relationships that are, or homosexuals and transsexuals and other genders also that are that have to undergo so many horrible things. Those all come under gender-based violence. But essentially, the root cause of the problem in Sri Lanka is the patriarchy. Because yes, women do also abuse men, but if you look at the statistics, there is a huge gap in the numbers, and it's often the men who are abusing the women and who get away with it, because men do enjoy an impunity socially in our culture and in our attitudes. And also we have a big lack of implementation of the law. Even though the laws exist, a lot of women don't know their rights. A lot of women feel like going to the law enforcement is a bigger violation and a bigger hassle, so they choose not to for various reasons. And it is a power play. It is a power play when it comes to gender-based violence. People abuse others because either they have a history of abuse themselves, where the only way they know how to express things like anger and control is through violence and narcissism. And they just believe that they have impunity, that nothing can happen to them, and it is their way of controlling the other. And we must understand the psychologies behind gender-based violence before we try to judge as a society or we try to re-victimize with the best of intentions the person who has suffered. We should definitely hold our heads and hands up high and say, no, stop. And if you are someone who has been victimized to it, and if you are a survivor of gender-based violence, know this: if he or she abuses you once, he or she will abuse you again, no matter how sorry they say they are, and no matter how much they get on their knees and promise it will never happen again. It will happen. And violence is not just physical, violence is also emotional and mental. So when it happens once, you need to get out of there. You need to say, no, you are worth a lot more than being subjected to this kind of harassment and pain throughout your life. I am happy to give this message on the invitation of Leo Club of Polga Suvita. Thank you for doing this campaign and raising awareness on matters that are really, really important to our women and girls.